Shamara, I'm glad you're here. Could you lead us in the pledge? John, lead us in the pledge. John? All
Gotcha.
right.
Please stand. Put your hand over your heart. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to adhere as much as possible to the scheduled times that we have on the agenda so we can move this meeting along. The first item we have up is public testimony and items listed on the agenda. Do we have any items?
Williams and Letitia, it sounds as though they have it fixed if you're ready to resume.
Actually, I have an idea. Maybe we should start over because those public comments weren't actually public if nobody could hear them in English.
That's an issue for the board, but I'm in support.
Yeah, you know, I don't know when the system went down, but maybe we would be remiss if we didn't just actually make sure that everybody was included. So you what's the feeling of fellow board members? Do you want to take it from the top? Let me
I agree. I'm supportive of that.
Okay.
I too. Take it from the top.
All right. Megan?
Okay, we're going to start with the comments then.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. This is from Valerie Griffin. Hello, Superintendent Baker and board members. I'm sure you're getting it from all sides while trying to manage all the day-to-day changes that come and have to receive revised plans. I was not surprised with the news of school starting online. Regardless of preference, I want to yell at those who continue to want to debate the topic. I say to them, at what point will people redirect the conversation since the decision has been made? School will be online. Therefore, let's move forward. Serious question and no disrespect meant to teachers, as I have many as family and friends. LBUSD has always prided themselves as being innovative. Technology in Google Classroom has been around since my oldest, now a junior, was in 3rd and 4th grade. Why is online learning technology being now made as new, foreign at all levels? Public homeschooling has been around in California for many, many years. Taught by they say credentialed teachers and affiliations with local schools and done virtually. Why can't this model be adopted or looked at for guidance instead of trying to make it up as we go? While I understand that this was thrown at us all, that if online is the way we are starting the school year, it needs to be better than it was in the spring. With little effort on research, I learned that public homeschooling uses one system for lesson plans, live session, recorded lessons, grading, communication to and from with students and parents, plus grading, some of which were lacking prior to distant learning and amplified March through June. The multiple platforms are overwhelming for teachers, students, and parents. School Loop, Google, Student View, Parent View, Zoom, etc. I know many teachers struggled and were out of their comfort zone, while others, I'm sure, succeeded. I personally experienced 2 amazing teachers my children had, and which I highlighted in the parent survey in June. History teacher, Mr. Howe from Hughes Middle School, and a chemistry teacher, Mr. Genovese of Millikan High School, along with others I'm sure could be looked at as mentors. If nothing else, I leave you with this. Communication on all levels must be improved. Without it, frustration and discord surfaces. Okay, next we have, dear school board members, my name is Dr. Kim Tabari. I am a parent to an incoming high school Black boy. My public comment is for agenda item number 9, engagement process. As you prepare for another school year, I am requesting that you do so in the spirit of striving for equity and racial justice, with the goal of achieving the best outcomes for Black students. I am specifically naming Black students because under your watch as board members, some of you for several years, 70% of these Black students are failing in math and ELA standards. This is heartbreaking to me as a mother of a Black child in the district. Therefore, it is critical that you examine and work to implement BLM Long Beach demands concerning the education of our district students. One specific demand is to hire more Black teachers, administrators, and paraprofessionals. Currently in the district, out of 3,219 teachers, only 217 are Black. Research shows that Black students who have just one Black teacher in elementary school are more likely to graduate and more likely to enroll in college, and significantly more likely if they have two Black teachers. Black children have better outcomes both in the short and long term when they have Black teachers. They're also more likely to be referred to gifted services, less likely to drop out of high school, and less likely to be suspended. Additionally, a Johns Hopkins University research purports that the role model effect seems to show that having one teacher of the same race is enough to give a student the ambition to achieve, for example, to take a college entrance exam. LBUSD must intentionally recruit and hire more Black teachers. This should have minimal effect on the budget, such as advertising in diversity outlets and intentionally creating a pool of Black applications. This demand would have an invaluable impact on the education of our Black students. I look forward to your leadership in uplifting Black students in the district. Thank you. Next is Danielle Achiro, and I am a parent of an LBUSD student and a former special educator. It is well known that education, both lower and higher, is the belly of the beast when it comes to upholding systemic racism. I'm calling on the board to make the moves to #disrupt anti-Blackness and prioritize Black students in LBUSD. End LBUSD's contract with the LBPD and get all the resource officers out of our schools. It is simply dangerous and traumatizing for Black students, and I'd argue for most students, to have a police presence in schools. How can we honestly expect our Black, Indigenous, and people of color, BIPOC students to thrive when we have armed officers on our campuses, demeaning them, threatening them, and treating many of them like criminals? Ending school contracts with police, in my opinion, an obvious first step to ending the school to prison pipeline. Along the same lines, it is time to end zero tolerance policies and out of school suspensions. When I was a middle school special education teacher, I watched far too many already struggling students fall even further behind due to out of school and in school suspensions. Since it is well documented that Black students are disproportionately suspended from school, out-of-school suspensions must be eliminated altogether and replaced with more restorative and transformative justice. Black students in LBUSD need and deserve to see themselves at school. This means hiring more Black teachers. LBUSD's teaching staff consists of 85% white folks, while serving a student body of only around 12% white students. This is the time for LBUSD to actively prioritize hiring Black faculty. To this point, our school district cannot profess to care about Black lives while not upholding and celebrating Black and African history and culture. This, among many reasons, is why LBUSD must mandate Black and ethnic studies and Black Lives Matter curriculum district-wide. I, as a white person, feel cheated for having been taught history and social studies through a male Eurocentric perspective. Black and ethnic studies curriculum is beneficial to all students, but especially to those who get to see themselves represented. Additionally, I would love for my white son, who will be an LBUSD kindergarten student this fall, to receive an in-depth education on, for example, the history of the West African kingdoms that flourished prior to European colonization. And I am not talking about what is currently provided in 7th grade world history textbooks. Please hear the community's call to uphold Black Lives Matter Long Beach's demands and to genuinely invest in our Black youth and students. Black students matter. Thank you for your leadership. Next, we have Leanne Holman, to whom it may concern. As a firm believer in science and education, it is beyond insane to me that there is even a discussion to reopen schools at this point. Cases and deaths are on a steady rise. Teachers of all ages are writing wills just in case. Kids with parents who care should be rightfully worried for themselves and their families. You can try all the masks, sanitizers, and distancing you want, but you cannot control what someone does when you aren't looking or when they leave campus. It could take over a week to get a positive test result, and in that meantime, someone could be unknowingly infecting their peers and colleagues without even knowing it. This is actual insanity. I mean, come on. I saw a protest sign that really hit home. I might be paraphrasing, and all credit to the original artist. Quote, why send us back to school if they won't listen to the educated? End of quote. Listen to doctors, not the racist, stupid buffoon sitting in the White House. You know he rapes kids, right? I doubt he has your kid's best interest at heart. We're not ready for this, and if you force it, you will have blood on your hands.
Next, we have Kimala Holmes. Dear school board members, my name is Kimala Holmes. I'm an attorney and a parent of 3 Black former LBUSD students. My public comment is for agenda item number 9, budget engagement process. As you prepare for another school year, I am requesting that you do so in the spirit of striving for social and racial justice and best practices with the goal of achieving the best outcomes for our students. With that in mind, it is critical that you examine and work to implement Black Lives Matter Long Beach demands concerning the education of our district students. I want to echo several BLMLB demands concerning school safety and discipline. First, end LBUSD contracts with the LBPD and get school resource officers, the police, out of schools. Second, end zero tolerance and out of school suspension. Third, require schools to report demographics on school discipline. Fourth, mandate alternatives to student discipline as the standards, such as restorative justice, transformative justice programs. Black communities are over-policed as a result of history of systematic racism and a white supremacist culture that demands control over Black bodies. Couple that with the rampant racialized police brutality that we can no longer shield our eyes from, though Black people have been pointing to it for decades. It then follows that for Black students, police presence in the school does not provide a sense of safety, but rather an intimidating force that disrupts the learning environment and provides another touch point with the criminal justice system. LBUSD must eliminate police officers from its campuses. Overall, Black students are subjected to harsh discipline and excluded from school via suspensions and expulsions at a rate many times their white counterparts for the same or lesser behavior. This systematic exclusion of Black students from school results in many hours of lost learning and bad outcomes for Black students. Students who lose learning time fall behind and are more likely to drop out. Students who are excluded from education through out-of-school suspensions and expulsions are more vulnerable, more likely to be victims of crime, and more likely to come into contact with carceral system, hence the term school to prison pipeline. For a number of years, I represented special education students and students who had been expelled or suspended from school. Through this experience, I saw Black and brown students be subject to expulsion and out-of-school suspensions for behaviors that were either mistakes that were wholly appropriate given the student's age or an unfortunate result. Okay, next we have Gloria. Would you translate, please? Gloria, are you there?
Okay. Elmisenda Castellón is the first person that I have. I will read in Spanish. Quiero expresarles mi gran preocupación acerca de la reapertura de las escuelas y creo que antes de decidir algo tan delicado y peligroso con la pandemia, deberían conducir el aprendizaje en casa, un sistema híbrido de aprendizaje en casa que incluya acceso de prioridad a tecnología, más apoyo académico y también que incluya enseñanza para los padres. En cuestión al uso de la tecnología, también es importante la reapertura eventual de las escuelas basada en la equidad para estudiantes negros y de altas necesidades. I'd like to express my great concern regarding the opening of schools. And I believe that before deciding on such a sensitive issue and dangerous due to the pandemic, you should consider home learning. A hybrid system of learning at home that includes technology, more academic support, and also teaching for parents. In regards to use of technology, it is also important that the eventual opening of schools be based on school. Also important is the eventual reopening of schools based on equity for Black and high need students. Thank you, Hermisenda Castellán. Now, Guillermina Cruz. Buenos días, superintendente y miembros de la mesa directiva. Mi nombre es Guillermina Cruz. Mi comentario es acerca del artículo número 8. Soy miembro del Sindicato de Padres Latinos en Action y estoy muy preocupada por el regreso a clases de los niños. Con el mandato de permanecer en casa y el no ver los amigos ha hecho que muchos niños estén afectados emocionalmente y quisiera que el distrito se prepare contratando un gran número de consejeros, psicólogos, también preparen a maestros y empleados para que sean competentes ante todo lo que se viene con las emociones de los niños. Como madre, les pido consideren estas recomendaciones, así todos estarán no solo protegidos contra el virus, sino también preparados para las condiciones emocionales que llegarán los niños. Gracias. So, good morning, Superintendent and members of the board. My name is Guillermina Cruz. My comment is regarding item number 8. I am a member of the Parent Union for Latinos in Action. I am very concerned about the return to school for the students. With the stay-at-home order and not seeing their friends, it has affected the students emotionally, and I would like the district to prepare for this by hiring a great number of counselors, psychologists, also preparing teachers and other staff so that they can be trained for everything that will come along, all the emotional issues that will come along with the students. As a mother, I am requesting that you consider these recommendations. In this manner, everything will be, in this way, everyone will be protected against the virus and also be prepared for the emotional issues that the students may be bringing.
Excuse me, Gloria.
Yes.
We have an English one right now, and then you can move on to number 9, okay? Okay, next we have Liliana Espinoza. Good morning, Superintendent and board members. My name is Liliana Espinoza. My comment is about Article 9. I'm a member of the Parent Union with Latinos in Action, and I'm one of the hundreds of mothers concerned about the reopening of schools. That's why I would like to tell you that it is very necessary that conduct home learning, a hybrid of home and in-person learning, and the eventual reopening of schools based on equity for Black and high needs students, which includes priority access to technology, academic support services, and social distance in-person activities. I hope you consider this fundamental recommendation. Thank you, Liliana Espinoza. Okay, Gloria.
Have María Corral. Buenos días, superintendente y miembros de la mesa directiva. Mi nombre es María Corral. Mi comentario es acerca del artículo número 9. Estoy representando a Latinos in Action, donde soy miembro del Parent Union, sindicato de padres. Una de las peticiones que yo quiero hacerles es que inviertan en una red de apoyo socioemocional, que esto incluye exigir aprendizaje socioemocional de cada lección, entrenamiento de maestros y personal para implementar prácticas restaurativas y virtuales y en persona en cada salón y escuela, y contratar a cientos de personal de apoyo para proveer consejería y servicios de salud mental. Esto urge. Inviertan en los niños, entrenen a los maestros y al personal. Esta es una época de decisiones urgentes, no es época de esperar. Gracias, María Corral. Good morning, Superintendent and members of the board. My name is Maria Corral. My comment is regarding item number 9. I represent Latinos in Action, where I am a member of the parent union. One of the requests that I want to post today is for you to invest in a social emotional support network that includes social emotional learning for each lesson, training for parents, for teachers, and for the staff to implement restorative practices virtual and also in person in each room and every school, and also to hire hundreds of staff to support, to provide counseling and mental health services. This is urgent to invest in the children, train the teachers and the staff. This is a period of time of urgent decision making. It's not a period of time for waiting. Gracias. Thank you, Maria Corral. And now María Zamudio. Buenos días, superintendente y miembros de la mesa directiva. Mi nombre es María Zamudio. Mi comentario es acerca del artículo número 9. Estoy representando a Latinos in Action. Por muchos años hemos estado trabajando junto con otros padres y Child Defense California. Le pido que tome en cuenta la aportación de los padres dentro del presupuesto y LCAP. Considere esto es como un negocio. Aquí están involucrados los estudiantes, el distrito escolar, padres, comunidad y organizaciones, y donde todos debemos estar al día con lo que está pasando con los fondos, donde se está invirtiendo, cómo y para qué. No subestimen nuestra participación, por lo que pido más información sobre el proceso de involucramiento público. La voz de los padres también cuenta. Gracias, María Zamudio. Good morning, Superintendent and members of the board. My name is Maria Zamudio. My comment is regarding item number 9. I represent Latinos in Action. We have been working for many years alongside parents and the Child Defense Fund California. I am asking that you consider the parents in the budget for and in the LCAP to also consider how this is a business. Here we involved many students, the district, the parents, community, and organizations. We all have to be up to date with what's happening with the budget. We also have to know where the money is invested and what it's being used for. Don't underestimate our participation. I also request that more information about the public involvement and the voice of the parents is also important. Thank you, Maria Zamudio.
Okay, next we have Adrian. Hello, I teach in elementary school and parents are already asking me how long their child will be online and how much homework they will be required to do. They are parents whom are essential workers and they need support and they need help. How will the district be able to provide support to these families and students that do not have any help at home while their parents work during the day? Will technology teachers be hired to teach students and parents with little to no technology skills so they can be successful with online learning, or is entirely up to the teacher who may also lack the technology skills as well? When will teachers be given more support, more technology to computers, more reliable technology at home to help these students more, especially when these young children do not have technology skills to begin with and were not taught last year? Online webinars or various applications are not enough to support or helpful. Also, it may not be known, but teachers who need 2 computers at home, one to teach from and one to see the class in order to teach from home successfully or somewhat successfully? Also, will teachers be evaluated, STOLD, this school year? What will it be based on? If we do not have the adequate tools from home to teach with, for example, 2 computers, how can we be evaluated fairly? How will students be assessed, one at a time? How will our special education students get the support they need from home? Thank you. Gloria?
Juana Castellanos. Buenos días, superintendente y miembros de la mesa directiva. Mi nombre es Juana Castellanos. Mi comentario es acerca del artículo número 9, proceso de participación presupuestaria. Estoy representando a Latinos in Action. Por muchos años hemos estado trabajando junto con otros padres y Child Defense California, uniéndonos a la lucha para lograr tener involucramiento significativo dentro del presupuesto y LCAP de nuestro distrito de LBUSD. Esta mañana quiero expresarles mi decepción porque hasta este día todavía falta información y no hemos podido ser incluidos en el proceso de involucramiento público. Es muy importante que la voz de los padres sea escuchada en todo momento, pero más en esta época de tanta incertidumbre, porque el distrito debe desarrollar el presupuesto a través de un proceso que refleje las exigencias y necesidades de las familias negras y de color para que logren éxito académico. Gracias. So, good morning, Superintendent and members of the board. My name is Juana Castellanos. My comment is about item number 9. I represent Latinos in Action. We have been working for many years with other parents and Child Defense California, uniting together for to fight for to have involvement in the budget and LCAP of our district in Long Beach. This morning, I want to express my deception because up to now, we are still missing information and we have not been involved in the public engagement process. It is very important that the voice of the parents be heard at all times, but it's even more important in this time of uncertainty because the district should just develop a budget through the process that reflects the demands and needs of Black and colored families so that they can achieve academic success. Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Cesar Armendariz. I live in Long Beach next to Wilson High, and I'm commenting on item number 8, opening of school. I teach in a different district at Downey High, but I'd like to thank the LBUSD board and district staff for having taken time before making a decision about transitioning fully to distance learning. Your decision has ripple effects that in one way or another influences the communities surrounding Long Beach. One of the most interesting outcomes of this pandemic is that it's brought teachers together. Teachers are feeling a deep sense of solidarity within and across districts. We worry about each other. We especially worry about the staff that has dedicated decades of their lives serving children. This virus is serious and we don't want it to hurt our coworkers in the classrooms, front office, coaching room, or the maintenance rooms. We are all in this together and we want everyone to be safe. We know that the virus has mostly spared our children, but we also know that the virus is out of control. We all need to act cautiously until we know that all of our students will be safe. As we return to a distance learning model, teachers across the country have questions, ideas, suggestions, worries, and fears. This is as good as a time as any to work together to find solutions to the education system's most difficult challenges. There are 3 challenges that really worry me. Number 1, how can we ensure that all students have a robust social and emotional support system? Number 2, how can we ensure that our most vulnerable children, especially Black children, have access to and receive high quality education? Number 3, how can we give students a chance at success given that schools are underfunded and in fear of huge budget cuts? As district staff, board members, and decision makers consider these questions, please make it your highest priority to keep the most vulnerable communities informed and engaged in the decision-making process. When we beat this virus and we look back at how each school district survived the pandemic, I am confident that the most successful districts will be those that work closely and directly with the Black community. Here in Long Beach, we have a diverse, vibrant, and highly engaged Black population. Let them be our beacon. Thank you. Next, we have Eduardo Lara. My name is Dr. Eduardo Lara. My zip code is 90802, and this statement is in reference to item number 9 on the board workshop. As the board engages in discussion on the budget for next school year, I request a racial equity lens be applied to decisions. Specifically, the following demands by Black Lives Matter Long Beach should be considered when earmarking funds. Number 1, fund implicit bias training across the school district for all teachers, administrators, and staff. Number 2, hire more Black teachers, administrators, and support staff. Number 3, incorporate Black Lives Matter curriculum across K-12. Number 4, fund Black and ethnic studies. Number 5, fund art, music, science, and technology, physical education, and after-school programs. Number 6, hire culturally competent academic and social emotional counselors, nurses, non-carceral social workers, and behavioral specialists. Number 7, fund restorative transformative justice programs. Number 8, fund full range of services to special education and academically disadvantaged students. School board budgets are a reflection of values. In this moment of racial reconciliation, the course of action reflective of justice is to adjust the budget so it is in alignment with the ethos of Black Lives Matter. I appreciate the board for taking this request into consideration as it moves the district in a more equitable direction. With gratitude.
Next, we have Mariala. Hello, board members, LBUSD staff, and parents. Thank you for the consideration today and providing additional time to listen to our community. My name is Mariela Salgado, a parent of 2 LBUSD students, and I'd like to comment on today's agenda item number 9 to ensure community and stakeholder engagement prior to finalizing the 2020-21 budget. On June 2nd, parents provided public comment regarding community engagement for the reopening and budget process. It's been over a month and we, parents, have yet to have the opportunity to engage and develop a budget through a community-driven process that reflects the demands of our high-needs children, newcomers, foster youth, and Black families for academic success. Since then, however, we've learned the district did have a series of meetings for an opening committee to reopen our schools with a lack of parent representation and told it was heavily district employee attended. It is imperative you hear what our children's needs, as they are pockets in which we have neglected and want to ensure they remain at the table when discussions are being made. As the survey results showed, only 3% of our students responded to district survey, 209 students. We are losing them with each passing month, and hopeful districts will ensure an open discussion with community stakeholders. There are children in West Long Beach who did not get access to a hotspot during the school year. Many seeking help during these difficult times, and it's going to take a village to ensure we minimize the loss of learning and prioritize our high needs children, newcomers, foster youth, and Black families. In service, Mariela Salgado.
That concludes the agenda items testimony. We have one more for non-agenda items. Okay. My name is Tonia Reyes Uranga, and I have a comment on items not listed on the agenda for the workshop on July 20th. For many reasons, we are in a crisis. When we have a crisis, our residents feel overwhelmed, disenfranchised, and feel angry, hopeless, and afraid of the unknown. It is the job of those that govern to provide comfort in an arena for discourse and planning. The LBUSD needs to embrace a model of governance that is inclusive. We are not there yet. Currently, decisions are brought forward unilaterally as policy by our school superintendent. In fact, recently, 2 announcements by staff regarding the opening of our schools, announcements that parents have been waiting for with a mixture of caution and anxiety, were presented without discussion or input. One announcement was a 3-pronged plan with little or no details outlining the opening of our schools for fall. And the second announcement, just days later, was an adjustment to the original announcement regarding the on-site learning. These are staff policy statements that should have been publicly discussed with and voted upon by our elected representatives, with parental and educator involvement, even as the governor provides additional mandates and guidance. Meanwhile, teachers, students, and parents are left wondering about the positions of our elected LBUSD governing board members, the Board of Education. The Board of Education is the policy-making body of the Long Beach Unified School District. The board is elected by voters to serve the best interest of their constituents. The board is elected to hold a public dialogue to weigh the concerns of public health officials, educators, and most importantly, parents and students before it makes any official announcement on policy-related matters. Consequently, major decisions with expert direction from staff is the purview of the Board of Education. Today will be an opportunity to listen to our elected board members and where they stand on the issues and more. On the workshop agenda is the budget that has already been passed and a reopening that has already been decided. Let's take time to hear from parents. A lack of backup material on the agenda further leaves parents at a disadvantage, making their active participation more necessary. I hope you provide adequate time to hear from parents and the public. Later today at 5 o'clock, the Board of Education will hold its regularly scheduled meeting. Let us hope we get to hear where the board stands on these and other issues. Thank you. And that concludes all of public testimony.
Letitia, thank you very much, and to the other readers and the interpreters for going through the items. We appreciate it very much. We are now at the opening of school update. Dr. Baker. Dr. Baker?
Thank you, Dr. Williams. As we start this morning, while I will not take my formal position as superintendent of schools until August 1st, I'd like to take a moment to introduce the team that is in the room with me today. This is a team that has been working nonstop to bring an update to you today and has been working tirelessly since our school closure to prepare for the reopening of school. Each of the members of this team will be tasked specifically this year with our excellence and equity agenda that will be a part of their individual work and a part of our collective work. On August 1st, we will post the new district's organizational chart, but today I'd just like to take a moment to introduce you. To my right, Yumi Takahashi, our Chief Business and Financial Officer. Starting to my left, Dr. Christy Kale, Assistant Superintendent, Office of Curriculum Instruction and Professional Development. Dr. Christopher Lund, Assistant Superintendent, Middle and K-8 Schools. To his left, Dr. Aaron Simon, Assistant Superintendent, Office of School Support Services. Standing to prepare for the next presentation, Dr. Tiffany Brown, Deputy Superintendent. Moving around the room, David Zaid, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resource Services. Dr. Jay Camarino, Assistant Superintendent of High Schools. Behind him in the room, Brian Moskovitz, Assistant Superintendent, Early Learning and Elementary Schools, and Chris Brown, Assistant Superintendent, Office of Research and School Improvement. We are a proud team that will be working together tirelessly in the days ahead on an agenda that is both excellence and equity driven. So I'd like to just open this presentation that you are going to hear from multiple members of the team, some of whom are in the room and many who are represented by the presentation that you will hear today. This team has been working in the building, out in schools, and with many others all through the spring and the days of summer to incorporate feedback from teachers, students, and parents. And you'll hear about the advisory committee process as they present today. They have been working to use available data to drive decisions, multiple survey datas and other aspects of data that are helping us to be good decision makers. They are also holding the values of excellence and equity in all of the decisions that we are forced to make during this very difficult time. And they are keeping student and staff health and safety at the forefront of our decisions. So I am proud to turn over to Dr. Tiffany Brown, who will kick off today's presentation about our work to open schools in the fall of 2020.
Good morning. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you today as we release information with a lot of thought and care and responsibility and listening that has gone on to what we will share with you today. We recognize that we have a tremendous volume of information and that every bit of information that we share opens more questions. And so we want to upfront acknowledge that and let you know that in the days ahead and in the weeks ahead, we will be working to bring you more specific communication plans around how some of the details that you will continue to wonder about following our presentation today will be shared. I'm sharing a screen with some objectives that we have today. And so the first is the very obvious, to share our opening plans for fall of 2020. It feels important to mention that if we would have shared this presentation just 1 week ago, our plans would have been very different. And that's actually symbolic of this experience over the last few months, an experience that has caused us to pivot and shift and be very nimble in the work that we're doing as we go forward. Our next objective today is to message how we arrived at these plans. These plans have been incorporated with tremendous guidance from local health agencies, from state agencies, from our community to include our staff, both classified and certificated, our administrators, the work of advisory groups that you will hear about in more detail shortly, but also the anecdotal information that's been shared from our whole community. One of the things that's wonderful about Long Beach is that we know each other. And so everywhere we go, information is shared. All of that anecdotal information is a part of our thinking and our considerations in what you see, what you will hear in front of you this morning. Next is to share information about health and safety preparedness. We begin everything we do in communication and in thought around the health and safety of our students and our staff. And were it not for the health and safety challenges that have been in front of us, none of the rest of this presentation would be necessary. So we always open with care and thought to health and safety in the forefront. Next is to communicate our teaching and learning plan based on what we've learned from our spring experience. What you will hear today is not a repeat of what our community experienced during the spring. We have heard you loud and clear, and we recognize and want to respond with a robust and informed instructional plan as we go forward. And then next and last, to convey what we are planning for special groups, for some of our vulnerable learners and some of our students that we need to plan in additional ways for. And our hope this morning is that time will allow us to address all of these things, but should we fall short, we want to share with you that at our August 5th board meeting, we will be picking up additional details to move forward. So moving into our health and safety preparedness. We have shared in a number of ways that our health and safety plans have been informed by correspondence with partner agencies, to include the Long Beach Health Department, the LA County Health Department, the Los Angeles County Office of Education, and certainly our California Department of Public Health. So with those agencies, we have worked with them in several ways. We have worked with them in guidance, which has come through their advice giving and the learning that we need to hold to be able to inform ourselves of what goes forward. We have worked with them through direction. In specific instances, they have told us directly what to do, and we have followed that guidance. And we have worked with them to plan forward so that we can be very informed in our next steps. And I just want to personally and on behalf of the district acknowledge Dr. Anissa Davis, Kelly Colopy, and Emily Holman, who are our good partners from our Long Beach Public Health Department that we feel so fortunate to have. I could call them on the phone right now and they would answer, and that has been true at all hours of day and night since March 13th. So you have our thanks and our hope for continued partnership. What's listed here are a series of district work groups, all related to health and safety. So the list in front of you are areas that we recognized we needed to be planning for specific to student health and safety needs. We have in each of these areas used our content area experts within the district on facilities, on nursing services, on our site operations, in tandem with the guidance that I've referenced from our local agency partners. And we have worked to cross-collaborate and plan for the needs within each of these areas, recognizing that we know the type of protective equipment that we are ordering and seeking, the health screening and standards that we're working towards. Those are all items that are in the forefront for community, for parents, for students, and certainly for staff. And so we've worked in each of these areas and in each of these groups to develop our plan and our protocols for how we will proceed as we look to having staff return to our buildings in different ways as fall approaches. I want to highlight with that we have had staff that have worked in our schools every single day since our closure, but also that as a community, you know some of the things that we're working towards as we work towards and look forward to the day when our students will be physically present with us on campus. So I'm just going to highlight an example of one of the ways that we have worked through this group and in recommendation of the personal protective equipment that will be purchased. So this is one example from the prior list where I will share with you some of the things that we're planning towards. So in the realm of PPE, the personal protective equipment that would be recommended and needed, what you see in front of you is a list of what we have planned for and what we are continuing to plan for. You'll see facial coverings, you'll see hand sanitizer, gloves, face shields, thermometers. What we have done with each of our committees is work from the perspective of what are the key areas, the key needs that they have, and then how will we plan for these things? So in keeping with this example related to facial coverings, it's important to share with you that we have, in preparation for our physical reopening, when that occurs, we have ordered 15,000 facial coverings for staff. We have ordered 2 facial coverings per student. We have ordered additional N95 and surgical masks for our health professionals and our staff who work physically more closely with some of our students who have medical needs. Related to hand sanitizer, we have 80,000 gallons all ready to go, which allows for 2 gallons per classroom. We have gloves on order. We are also recommending and purchase facial shields for our students who have communication differences or our staff who are communicatively diverse, as well as for our younger students and our students that really need to see it in the face of a person in order to be able to feel comfortable and to access their environment. We have also made purchase of cleansing wipes. In fact, 22,000 per month is what we're prepared for. We have purchased 700 thermometers for health screening as we enter schools. So within each of the things that I just said, you may be listening at home and having questions around what I just said. I called out numbers because I want you to know the pure volume that we are working from, that we have a plan to deploy these materials, that as a part of the work groups that I mentioned earlier, we will have specific written protocols for use. And you can look forward in the weeks ahead to some video modeling, which would show some of the items that I have referenced in addition to For example, health screening. How would that look as we plan towards a physical reentering of school? What would that look like in the morning? What would students experience? What expectations would be in front of staff? So this is really meant to be one snapshot. I could go through a snapshot like this of each of the items that were listed on the slide before, but this is really just meant to give you one more snapshot of information so that you can hear from us that we are incorporating all of the guidance and all of the directives around health and safety for our community members, for our staff. And we are planning with that information in mind. We are going to shift gears, and I'm going to ask Dr. Christy Kale to come up. You heard from Dr. Kale on June 15th, where she shared information about our home learning survey and the way that we use that information to inform our next steps. Dr. Kale has a new job since June 15th, and what you'll hear from her as now the Assistant Superintendent of the Office of Curriculum, Instruction, and Professional Development are some of our next steps around how we will work from the information that we gathered in spring to plan forward for our instructional practices for fall.
Good morning. As Dr. Brown mentioned, when I was here on June 15th, I believe it was, I shared with you the quantitative data from our student, staff, and parent surveys. And today I have some of the qualitative data. We were able to look at the thousands of comments we received from students, teachers, and parents and glean some themes. So we learned a lot, and I want to thank everybody who took the time to fill that out. We did indeed read your comments. So I'm going to share 3 of the themes that emerged that are relevant to our conversation today. So the first one is a need for better online instruction. So students and parents made many suggestions to us, and really the large theme was they wanted their experience on online to better approximate what happens in a classroom. So that would include, they would like more teachers teaching over video. They would like the experience to be more structured and more scheduled. They talked a lot about wanting to use a common platform. Our Spanish-speaking parents spoke a lot about frustrations of having to go from one application to another and the confusion therein. So they asked for streamlining that online experience. They also asked for less work overall and less busy work. So we're working on all these things as we are now pivoting for that online instruction. And in a little while, a couple of my colleagues will talk about some of the work that we've already done this summer and experienced some success with a little bit better online instruction already. The second theme that emerged was the idea of the need for improved communication. So all 3 of our groups, students, parents, and teachers, expressed frustration around challenges around communication. Our teachers, 37% of them said that communicating was extremely or quite challenging, especially trying to communicate with parents. Most of them used email most frequently and phone calls, but they also used a variety of applications, including things they had found on their own. As far as their requests and needs, what they ask for, students and parents want explanations of assignments. So they want to know what is it that's expected, and they want to make sure they understand what they are being asked to do. Teachers and parents both talked about the need for Spanish language support. Again, a communication challenge. Teachers talked about needing an easier way to contact parents, both as a group and individually. And they also wanted to have the ability to track that communication. Parents needed help with technology, and all groups actually asked for more opportunities for feedback and including grades. And a little bit later on in this presentation, my colleague Chris Brown will talk a little bit more about some ways that we plan to address some of these communication issues. The third theme that emerged was the need for more interaction and support. So both teachers and parents talked about the need for students to have more time interacting with their teachers and to get additional support for them. So that's especially true for our students with special needs, English learners, the kids that our teachers just simply couldn't reach no matter how hard they tried. and then those who really need those hands-on tools, our youngest students especially. And then in addition, we know students were feeling isolated and disconnected, so those who needed some social and emotional support, and those who were just kind of struggling and in need of tutoring. So those comments came out as a need for both in-person and small group. And a little bit later on, Dr. Simon's going to talk a little bit more about some of our plans. So where we are right now is we are working on planning an immediate Smart Start. So that includes days 1 through 23 of instruction, which is what we're planning out right now. And we're looking at putting programs in place to address those potential learning gaps. So we know students will have some lost learning. So we're working on that, addressing social and emotional learning, coming up with common digital pedagogy so that the experiences for students can be more similar across classrooms, addressing the needs of special populations, as I mentioned, and incorporating a system for grading and feedback for students. So the work that we're working on right now includes focused curriculum, coming up with resources and lessons for teachers, along the lines with the increased live instruction, and then of course building out the teacher professional development that's going to need to be included in order for our teachers to do this work, and then working on a new learning platform and communication tools. So just to move us along quickly, I'm going to bring up my colleague, Mr. Brian Moskowitz, and he's going to talk about the work that the 3-level offices have been doing both this summer and the models of instruction that they're planning as we open school.
All right, good morning, board members, and hopefully we have many parents, students, teachers, and staff out in the world watching as well, so they can be informed. So as Dr. Kale mentioned, a couple of important items have taken place since our schools closed on June 11th, when the school year closed. A lot of important work behind the scenes, but 2 important kind of larger committee and larger efforts took place. One of those was these level advisory committees. And the level advisory committees were made up of teachers, parents, students, administrators, and labor partners. At the elementary level, we had 3 parents, a parent representing Signal Hill, Lakewood, and Long Beach. We had 4 teachers, including a teacher in special education. We had administrators who were present to lend their perspective, and classified staff as well. And actually, throughout these committees, some of these teachers and staff came from recommendations from our labor partners. So we asked for representatives from our Teachers Association of Long Beach, from our California School Employees Association. And on the elementary committee, I had the honor of working with Carrie Nemec, the president of ALBA, which is our Managers Association, Christine Kelly, the president of TALB, and Gilbert Bonilla, the president of CSEA. So we had a nice representation of parents across our district, of representation from our labor partners and other teachers and staff. And as we went through a series of multiple meetings over several weeks, we analyzed the data that you received back in June. And we spent quite a bit of time, 2 full sessions, on deeply thinking about the needs of our students and the needs of our staff as we considered coming back to school for the fall of 2020. And you can imagine from diverse perspectives, thinking about schools all across our district, we came up with numerous needs of our students and then tried to consider what are the best ways to meet those needs. We talked about the health and safety considerations that you heard a little bit from Dr. Brown about. We talked a lot about the social emotional learning aspect that needed to be embedded in any of our work. And we asked the committee members to consider multiple modes of instruction. And through their participation, we narrowed it down to the models of instruction that we think best met the needs of our students and also consider the needs of our teachers and staff. So let me take you through specifically to the elementary schools, or the work that we're considering, and then I'll hand off to my colleagues at the middle K-8 and high school levels. So I mentioned 2 important events that took place this summer. One was the work with the advisory committees. Another important component that we engaged in at the elementary level was our Summer Enrichment and Learning Program called SEAL. And what we wanted to do in our SEAL program is we wanted to really analyze the data that came from our teachers and our parents in relation to the home learning opportunities in the spring. And we wanted to try to create a model of instruction and support that really referenced those needs and referenced the frustrations that we heard from both our parents, our students, and our teachers. And so one of the expectations for the summer program at the elementary level was that there would be 2 hours of live instruction over Google Meet sessions. So all of our teachers who signed up to teach in this summer program agreed to and did provide 2 hours of live instruction. There was the implementation of many different technologies and online applications. And we wanted our teachers to provide some very clear feedback and communication to students and also with parents. And through this, you can imagine the lift that it takes to run a program like this. I want to give a quick shout out to several people, which I think highlights the collaborative nature within our district. Angelica Gonzalez, a director in my office, really took the lead on developing the program at the elementary level. She worked many different sessions and planning with folks from our Office of Curriculum Instruction and Professional Development, specifically Jandela Faulkner, Lisa Dugan, Carmen Hernandez, and then Jennifer Prager, who has been working for both the elementary office and our Office of School Support Services. And what we heard from parents in the spring was, and from our teachers and students, we wanted to see some work that was a little bit more integrated, a little bit more intentional, a little bit more time engaging between students and teachers. And so we were able to integrate our English language arts and English language development, our math, and our social emotional learning was embedded throughout. We had weekly themes that you can see on the bottom of the screen there that we developed that we thought were really ways to engage students. We wanted to engage students not just in talking about reading and math, but really engage them in who they are and what they believe in. And actually where we are in our society now, these weekly essential questions that we developed well before any of the social unrest developed maybe in our country and our community, but they were well received by students. And you'll see in a moment some of the data that we heard from our students. And we think these weekly themes and this embedding of social emotional learning was very critical to the success of the program. We had 170 teachers who were teaching. We were hoping for 200. I'm sure many of them wanted a nice summer break. And so to supplement those 170 teachers, we had 16 administrators who taught as well. And I think this has provided a lot of empathy for what our teachers experience. And so moving forward, we know that our principals, having experienced this teaching this summer, will help them to understand their teachers and their students a little bit better. So just want to review some data that came out of our SEAL program. You'll recall looking at the data from the home learning opportunities in the spring, that approximately 30% of parents were satisfied with the home learning opportunities in the spring. So with our SEAL program that we intentionally developed as a result of the feedback we received, as you can see here, we had 86% of our parents were either extremely satisfied or very satisfied with the SEAL program this summer. A great change from what we saw in the spring. When we asked teachers, we provided a lot of support for teachers. We helped develop the curriculum guidance documents that embedded all of these, the curricular areas together, that embedded the social emotional learning. And so we asked our teachers, if we provided this level of support, do you believe that you could effectively develop plans for instruction moving forward? And you can see that over 80% of teachers felt very strongly that they could provide that planning if we provided the support to them. I think these next two slides really tell it all. We asked our students, now keep in mind, these are students who had never met, in most cases, had never met the teacher that they were working with this summer. Somebody joined on virtually at the end of June and worked with them for 4 weeks, virtually every day. Never met them in person and had never met them before. And we asked our students, did you feel that your SEAL teacher cared about you in the summer? And 96% felt that care from the teacher over the computer with people they'd never met. And again, we think that's due to the embedding of that social emotional learning and giving high quality content that our students cared about. And finally, we asked our students how happy they were with their SEAL experience. And again, you can see about 85% of our students were extremely or very happy. So based on both the feedback we received from our advisory committee and the feedback we received from our teachers, parents, and students after our SEAL program, we think we're on the right track with developing a really robust, high-quality program for the fall. And so with that, what we did was before our decision last week, we came up with 3 different models of instruction. And this came out of the advisory committee work, and it also came out again out of our feedback from our SEAL program. So I'm going to talk briefly about the 3 models. We'll go into a little bit more detail with our online model, since that's where we will be starting in the fall. But our 3 models at the elementary level, there's going to be an in-person option, and hopefully we can get to there sooner or later, depending on how long that lasts, but we know we're planning for that now. And that in-person model, in order to accomplish that at the elementary level, there's been a lot of work behind the scenes to consider what this might look like. It involves everything from determining how much space would be needed in order to socially distance our students. And you saw a video from Dr. Baker last week, walking a classroom with that social distance taking place. Our facilities department has calculated how much space would be needed in order for all of our elementary students to be able to be spread out. And the way we've considered what that would look like is that for part of the day, the students would be with a classroom teacher receiving instruction in our core content areas. And for the other half of the day, our students would be with another site staff member going over some of the extended learning and supplemental tasks that are typical in an elementary school day. So we believe that when we do come to a time where we can safely return in person in school, we have the capacity to meet the needs of every student, every family who wants their child in school for the full instructional day. Some families may opt to have a hybrid model, and the hybrid model would look like students at school for about 3 hours a day, receiving that direct instruction from a classroom teacher, and then they would go home and complete those supplemental activities, the extended learning at home under parent supervision. And then ultimately, a third option that we will be starting for all of our students at the elementary level, will be starting with this third online option. And ultimately, when we're able to return to school in a safe manner, if parents opt to, they can continue to have their child enroll in the online option through the entire school year. So let me go into a little detail of what this online option looks like. Again, hearing from the feedback from our parents and teachers in the spring, and then really mirroring it based on what we did in our SEAL program this summer. So there's a lot of text on this slide. I'm not going to go over all of it, but the first 2 columns are the areas where I really want you to focus for now. And these slides, of course, then will be accessible for anyone watching on our YouTube channel later. So you can see right from the very beginning, every morning is going to start off with some social emotional openings in order to connect our students with one another and our students with our teacher. We think that's important, and we saw that success from our SEAL program. We are going to have direct live instruction from our teachers in areas of English language arts and mathematics. And you can see within there, woven throughout the day, will be opportunities for mindfulness, movement, meditation. We know that it's not easy for students, especially 6, 7, 8-year-olds, to sit in front of a computer all day long. And so we're intentionally planning for what that would look like, to have students getting up and moving and thinking and having those brain breaks throughout their time so that they can stay focused on the content when it's important to do so. You can also see on the far right that we will be integrating our English language development, integrated ELD will be throughout the day. You'll see in a moment where there's an opportunity for designated ELD as necessary, but we found that to be very helpful in our SEAL program as well, to be very intentional about supporting our English learners. All of this in that second column you'll see involves direct teacher instruction, and we know we can accomplish that if we provide the level of support we provided to teachers during our summer program. The second half of the day, you can see the day is a typical school day, 8 to 2 in this sample schedule for our students. There's opportunities for students to collaboratively and independently learn, teacher coming back whole group to work on areas such as social studies, science, PE, and art. An opportunity for some closure and feedback, and then opportunities for our teachers to also engage with students in small groups, because we know that's really important. At our youngest grades, guided reading is critical. For some of our English learners, they need a designated language development time. And so we plan for all of that. And so in our model here, let's say an 8 to 2 schedule for a student, they'll be engaged with the teacher throughout that 8 to 2 time, breaks for mindfulness and meditation, breaks for lunch, opportunities to engage with colleagues and with the teacher, opportunities to engage whole group and small group. We think this is very different than what we provided in our spring program. We think this meets the needs that came out of our advisory committee from parent surveys. We think it mirrors what we did in our SEAL program that was highly regarded by both teachers, parents, and our students. And so we're excited to be able to start this next school year at the elementary level with a very robust program that we think meets all of our stakeholders' needs. So I'll now invite up my colleague, Dr. Christopher Lund, and he'll share the plans for the middle and K-8 schools.
All right, good morning. So first of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Moskowitz and his elementary team and the elementary advisory group for all their work preparing our plans at the elementary level. In our K-8 schools, our elementary students within those K-8 schools will follow the models that Brian outlined. So likewise, I'm going to spend some time going over our middle school summer enrichment program, as well as our middle school models for our reopening of school. Starting off with our summer school program, I'd like to thank Dr. Cecilia Camarino for all of her work leading our summer school planning and preparation, with extensive support from our curriculum office, Becky Afghani in particular, with our strong focus on math during our summer program. So here you'll see an overview of what our focus was for our summer school program at the middle school level, addressing about 1,000 students that participated in our program. We had two groups, one that focused on math, enrichment and readiness, looking at our rising 7th and 8th grade students. These would be our students that had just finished 6th and 7th grade in preparation for their 7th and 8th grade math courses, as well as our newcomers at the middle school level for rising 7th through 9th grade. So the criteria for the students participating in this program were students that were unsuccessful in their first semester in their math course, or who had not met on the prior year's SBEC score in math, or for our newcomers, students that were 2 years or less within our education system who had scored at the beginning level either on their initial or summative LPAC. And likewise, as Brian had alluded to, we looked at SEAL as an opportunity to test out what an instructional model could look like at the middle school level. So you'll see the expectations outlined here for our SEAL program of, once again, live synchronous instruction, daily built into the program, opportunities to build relationships with students in an online environment, collaboration and conversation being built in, so opportunities for interaction between students and with their teacher, a focus on the essential learning standards, and in this case, those learning standards connected to that math coursework that the students would need to be successful in their upcoming math courses, as well as obviously for our English learners, building foundational English skills in preparation for the upcoming school year. And then it was also supported by additional asynchronous work that the students would engage in, predominantly supported through Khan Academy. We had a clear lesson structure that was built into the program with a built-in warm-up as students logged into the system to engage them in some work. Once again, that synchronous direct instruction that included interaction throughout the lessons, and then really opportunities to practice that math content with built-in feedback by the teacher. You see very similar results that Brian had shared around the elementary experience that we had at the middle school level as well. So close to 85% of our families indicated a very or extremely satisfied perception of our SEAL program. You'll see on the right there our staff experience. And once again, this was a testament to the training that occurred prior to the SEAL program with our teachers, and also gave us an indication of what additional work we would need to do to support teachers in their transition to a different online teaching experience for the fall. So once again, you see a very high response rate in terms of confidence that teachers had in terms of their preparation, and then also how successful they were in their live teaching experience. So these created some clear implications for us as it related to our preparations for the fall experience. One was around technology, and I think you heard this actually in some of the opening comments today. around some of the technology essentials. So the teachers shared themselves that having multiple computers, multiple devices to teach from was a huge benefit for them in terms of the summer school experience. One, to kind of mirror what the students were seeing within the online platform. And a second was to really see all the students. So one of our expectations for the summer school experience is that all students would be part of this, online Zoom sort of experience. So instead of hiding, in a traditional sort of Zoom experience that many experienced in the spring, all students participated visually in that learning experience. And that obviously supported teachers keeping students engaged, calling on students within that experience, keeping them connected to the learning, checking for understanding within that program or within that teaching. That was also supported with use of interactive apps that were part of the training that we did with teachers. This included a number of applications, roughly 6 to 8 different applications that teachers would build into their instruction, whether that was a virtual whiteboard, the use of Pear Deck, the use of other engaging applications that would support their learning. And these were essential in terms of not just that synchronous teaching, but also that live engagement and interaction with students, and a crucial part of that formative assessment that occurred within the program. There was the real clear focus of the teaching around the essential learning standards, and that's something that Dr. Kale referenced earlier as well for our reopening of schools and being really clear on what are those essential learning standards that we're addressing within our online environment. And then a clear lesson structure that would support the teaching within that environment. So looking at really a direct instruction model and then opportunities to build an additional inquiry into that learning. So that obviously is going to carry over into the instructional models that we're considering for the fall. As Brian had referenced, I'll talk a little bit about the hybrid model, which is the face-to-face model that we'll consider when we get to that point around our reopening of schools, and then spend more time focusing on the options within the virtual environment. So on the left, you see the hybrid AB schedule that we were considering, or that we're looking at for the middle school level. The AB schedule is something that I know that Dr. Camarino is going to talk about for high schools as well. It was something that was necessitated based upon the facilities walks that we did at the middle school level, and really just the space limitations at the middle and high school level, as well as some of the staffing limitations. So when we do come back to a face-to-face environment, we are looking at an AB schedule for our students, whereby students if they are on the A schedule, attend schools on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If they are on the B schedule, they attend schools on Wednesday and Friday. All students attend school on Monday, but in a virtual environment. The virtual day was built really with that intention of being able to seamlessly transition from a face-to-face environment to an online environment. It also guaranteed 3 days a week that students were in front of a teacher. Every day on Monday, and then every other day, Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, Friday, throughout the week. There were also certain elements built in around safety that we looked at that I'll elaborate on at a later time when we talk about that transition back to a face-to-face environment. But just know that the health and safety aspect of our return was a huge part of the advisement from our advisory groups, which included multiple lunches, staggered passing periods, clustering of students to reduce movement on campus, all those efforts to really address the health and safety concerns. Options 2 and 3 are the options that parents will have at the middle school level upon our return to school on September 1st. The option 2 is essentially a virtual model that builds in live synchronous teaching that I'll elaborate on just a bit. And option 3 is really an alternative independent study program that replicates what's occurred at the high school level for a while using an online curriculum that we have available within the district called APEX. And this is really an alternative program that parents that might want to consider a more traditional homeschool model might look at this model as an alternative of keeping their students within LBUSD and providing an independent study program for them at the middle school level. So elaborating on that, within the all virtual option that students will experience, students will have their traditional 6 or 7 courses that their current middle school offers. They will have a full day schedule within that program So unlike the experience in the spring where they experienced a partial schedule, a couple of courses each day, in this particular model, they'll experience every course every day. Approximately a 50-minute period of live synchronous teaching that occurs throughout the day. We're going to look at what we learned from our SEAL program in terms of the use of specific applications to engage students, opportunities for interaction and engagement within that teaching so that our students are engaged throughout the day with essentially a passing period, if you will, or a transition period of roughly 10 to 15 minutes between courses to give both teachers and students a break, if you will, between teaching and between course experiences. So within the online model of the virtual experience, students will be in school essentially from 9 to 3:40, experiencing all their courses every day. Within the independent study option that you see on the right, this is predicated upon the use of Apex, and what we are prioritizing are 4 courses, essentially the 4 core content courses of English, math, history, and science within the program. This allows for a little bit more flexibility around students that are a little bit more self-motivated, self-driven, self-managed, that can work through an independent study program, perhaps with parent support within a homeschool sort of model. It will be supplemented with teaching based on what teachers see within the work that students are doing within that independent study program. Meaning, what are the core problems or challenges that students are experiencing where I can build in some teaching into that program so that it's not just independent work that students are completing, but they're actually getting some supplemental instruction based on that program. So that would vary depending on the needs of the students. So we're looking at essentially 20 to 50 minutes of live teaching built into that program. The 4 courses are designed so that students aren't taking 6 online courses. And this was really the advisement from our advisory groups that said, even students in college who take independent study work often won't take 6 courses at a time. So we felt that the 4 courses would be realistic for students. And like, as I mentioned, this would be a strong alternative to parents that might want to be looking at alternative homeschool sort of programs outside of our system to keep parents within our system. So we hope that these 2 online models at the middle school level, they are both all virtual options, give parents a choice within that virtual experience, and then also allows them to seamlessly transition back into a face-to-face model. So both of these models can be replicated within the face-to-face setting. So students that are choosing to continue in an all online environment, either within the all virtual option or within the independent study option, would be able to do so even upon returning to a face-to-face hybrid model. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Camarino, who's going to go over our high school models. And you'll see some similarities in regard to an AB schedule, and then obviously in regard to some of the independent study options that might be available at the high school level as well.
Thank you, Dr. Lund. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be up here. As we move on to the high school models, it really, as we all know, this has been a very challenging time for all of us. And what I've really appreciated is the support from the whole team, our community members, our business partners, all of our people involved in our high schools. It really takes a lot of work with our industry sectors and the fact that we have so many pathways within our schools, that it was really a challenge to think about some kind of a model that we can have K through 12 that would be helpful to for all of our parents. The high school model is just a challenge in the sense that we have schools within a school, and just everything that pertains to having a 6-period day to a 7-period day, and looking at all those dynamics and having our students really be a part of our advisory groups really helped us in kind of coming up with the models that we have here. It's a real challenge, and really appreciate everything there. So when we look at what we're doing for the high school model is looking at putting ourselves in the teacher's shoes, where we have a lot of, or to put our teacher hat on, we have a lot of challenges when we come back to the school. We're going to need a lot of teacher training on dealing with the post, trauma of going into COVID. So we need that training for our staff and for our students. We're also going to need a lot of the civil unrest that's happened in our community and some of the training that's going to happen there. So you're already asking for it. Not only are teachers going to have to come back to a traumatic situation after COVID and after our civil unrest, but also just being able to come back to school in general. and really looking at how realistic is it to have a lot of meetings to talk about the change of our content, our curriculum, and how many days of instruction we're going to have. So with the high school model, I don't know if we're ahead or if we can move ahead, sorry. Do the high school models? Oh, I do it. Thank you, sorry, never mind. Is that we want to look at really some options here that we have for everyone. Basically, we're going to have two models. A virtual model that's going to be all learning online for our parents who don't, feel comfortable, or students don't feel comfortable coming back to school. And we have a hybrid model. We're not coming back to school full-fledged yet, so we only have real two options to really consider. A hybrid model where half of our students will be coming to school and the other half will not be there. All of our campuses have been walked through with our facilities folks. We've walked every single school in our system. We know that for the most part, half of our students fit in our classrooms, so we know that for sure. For schools that are a little bit older or impacted, like a Wilson, a Poly, a Washington, a Franklin Middle School, all those campuses can't necessarily sit half of our students, so we still have some logistical issues with being able to fit half of our students in our classrooms and half of them being, at home. So just considering those pieces, that for the most part, our students fit on our campuses, but some of our schools are going to have some challenges. So when you look here, we had some considerations to look at. And we try to, at the high school level, to align our schedules as much as possible to pre-COVID. The second bullet to look at is providing flexibility to maximize in-person learning for students. So we want to have as many students on campus as possible. And then following the two guidelines in AB 77 and SB 98, we want to have, our instructional minutes can be reduced to a minimum of 240. It doesn't have to be 240, but it could be more, but that's the minimum number of instructional minutes we can have. We shall offer in-person instruction to the greatest extent possible. Daily live interaction with certificated employees, and daily attendance must be taken. Those are really good, big challenges to consider the students that would not be on campus, so the students that fall into the odd even days or they're not there. Chris Brown will be talking to you about the LMS to be able to help support those students who won't be on campus for those days. So we'll go into that in a little bit after I'm done here. And then lastly, we want to maintain student schedules as much, student routines as much as possible. As you all know, especially with our teenagers, having those days where they're not on campus, our fear has been, what do those students do when they're not at school? Are they going to sleep in? Probably. That's what we're considering and worried about. What assignments will they have to do when they're not on campus? We all know that students tend to communicate with one another as far as, what did you do here? What did you do there? Show me what you did there. So we want to keep it to as natural as possible for students to be able to have a routine of having to get up to go to school, whether it's in person or it's going to be virtually. So our first virtual learning model is basically for students that are not going to return once we're able to come back to school in a modified way, is to go virtual option, which keeps everyone in their pathways. So if you're in any specific pathway, you can stay on and be in that same caseload with the same pathway of teachers and go just virtually go through Apex. Our Apex classrooms will be just within the pathway, and students will be able to keep the same number of students in that particular pathway and stay on board with the virtual learning there. For the hybrid model, we basically would have half the students at school and the other half at home. And what we have proposed there is for students to be able to, again, in the optimal situation, is be able to have the most number of instructional days. But realistically, with our schools being the way they are and with social distancing, only half of our students would be able to come to school and the other half would have to be at home doing something, whether it's virtual, online, or assignments, whatever it's going to be. We want to make sure that those students get the 180 days of instruction if possible. We know that the other considerations is that we have some of our schools across the nation, and talking with the College Board, is how they're going to modify the AP testing, for example, of students who will get 180 days of instruction, 90 days of instruction, whatever it's going to be for our AP scores, our AP tests for our students to have equitable access to instruction. Those are some of the things that we have to look at as we're going through our two models. So those are the simple models that we have here for high school, nothing too grand or large, but are we stopping for questions? Is that where we're? Okay, sorry. Okay, so next up will be Chris Brown, who will go over our learning management system.
Good morning. Thank you. So a lot of what we've heard has been around the why and the what. We know that we want to provide a really robust program for students, both virtually when we start the school year and then eventually when we come back. And we've talked about the levels and through the Office of Curriculum about the what, really how we're going to do it online and how we're going to model some of the learning we had in SEAL. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a possibility for how we could do this. One of the things we heard loud and clear from students, families, and teachers was the challenge that they had when it came to innovating in a way to engage their students this last spring. So they had a lot of apps that they used. They had a lot of ways to communicate with parents, and they weren't all seamless, and it didn't always add up to some smooth communication. So based on that, we've really started cross-departmentally looking at a learning management system. And so Kevin Shillito from the Office of Research and Amy Pendre from the Office of Curriculum and Instruction have really looked at what's a way we could meet the needs of our families, not only online, but when they come back as well, to really have a seamless educational technology platform to use all of the different things that our teachers discovered while they were working this spring in a way to engage students. So one of the things that we know is that there's a lot of great apps out there and there's a lot of great curriculum out there, but our teachers and our students really had some confusion with logging in, multiple accounts, where do I go to find out information, where do I go when I'm synchronous, where do I go when I'm asynchronous. And so an LMS, a learning management system, would really allow our students and our parents and our teachers to have a one-stop shop, a place where all of this is in one place, one sign-on, one portal, and it can be paced out so that teachers know exactly how often kids are engaging. Parents can follow up with what their kids are learning. The Zoom or Google Meet or whatever the synchronous environment will be is right in there. So I sign on to one place to get all of my work, my homework, to meet with my teacher live every day. And I don't have to move in and out of different platforms. It also allows us to secure some data within our domain so we don't have to worry about privacy and data sharing with all of these different entities and apps outside of our system. We also know that online, especially when it was asynchronous, there was some challenges around interacting with students. There were some challenges around engaging with students. And an LMS really provides an environment where teachers and students can interact a lot and can interact around content in a way that's more robust than just assigning something simply outside. So there's some flexibility there for synchronous learning. There's flexibility to use the textbook resources that we already have. There's flexibility to bring in new resources that teachers may have created last spring in Google Suite or in different learning apps and embed them into the LMS so that they don't have to think about recreating everything they did when we first went online, but rather how can they strategically add to it and make it more robust for our students. One of the things we heard from our families and our communities was that it was really a challenge for parents who wanted to be able to monitor their students to actually have a way of doing that, to see how their kids are making progress, to be able to reach out and ask for support if their kids needed it. And this is one of the things where an LMS would really help us out. Even in the future, in the event we ever had an emergency again, this idea that we would never have to instantly try and create an online platform, it would already exist for us. So as kids came back to school, if they then had to leave again for some reason, it would be seamless for them. Their instructional pattern wouldn't have to change. That, and the fact that teachers, or I should say parents, don't have to be within our system to follow on their students. So one of the problems we had was you couldn't see your student's Google Classroom unless your student had logged you in or you existed inside the LB Schools.net domain. This way, through an LMS, parents can monitor their students, they can log in, they have their own accounts, and they can have direct communication from teachers and from the school straight to the parents. It doesn't have to go through the students. And this communication can be around grades, around assignments, or anything else that gets pushed out through the LMS, which really means we have a lot more access. And the other part to this is it's all translated. So all of the support through the LMS, all of the communications get pushed out, all the instructions, everything can be translated into multiple languages. So the ease of access for all of our parents from all of our community is a lot higher with an LMS. So that being said, it's a big lift to launch an LMS, and many systems have them already. So we have to think about what we're doing next. So last week, the research office facilitated teacher focus groups with teachers that were selected by the level offices as well as TALB, and really thinking about what are the different needs we want from different vendors. And then we're starting to think about working with TISB on what's the technical lift we would need to implement a system like this. OCIPD is already working on how can we help teachers integrate curricular tools, their unit guides, their pacing charts, the things that they've already done and created in their teaching into this so that it wouldn't be like reinventing the wheel. It would be more of a technical learning on training on how to use it, but they could use the materials they already had. And then also, of course, planning some in-depth teacher training before anything like this could get rolled out. And the level offices would need to really be working on how do we develop a timeline for implementation. So an LMS, like any system in the tech world right now, has a lot of different features that it can do. And we would really be thinking about what are the essential features we want running to start the school, and then what other features would we want to bring up as we go along in a scaffolded way to make sure that our teachers and our parents and students get the support so they can access the full program. We did do the focus groups, like I said, so I just wanted to share a little bit of teacher feedback. We had almost 40 teachers participate in multiple focus groups last week, and the feedback was all positive. So they liked everything they saw. They were really excited about the option of a one-stop shop. Their one concern was about training and making sure they got support on how to use something like this, and we'd have to be very strategic in our training plans. But it was really interesting to hear them talk about how they thought about using their old curriculum, their old way of teaching, but trying to think about it new in a digital world and think about how they could engage kids using this LMS. So the feedback was really, really positive. And with that being said, I'd like to invite Dr. Simon up.
So good morning. I'm a really tall lady, so I'm gonna stretch this out as much as possible. So to the Board of Education, students and families, and the community in general, thank you for allowing me this time to speak with you this morning. I'm going to discuss vulnerable student groups and also delve into social emotional learning, SEL, and then also mental health. So students with disabilities, foster youth, homeless youth, and English learners will be given special consideration to ensure appropriate instruction while complying with federal and state requirements. Moving forward, let me just touch upon vulnerable groups. We can extend this during the August 5th board meeting, but I really want to take just some time to discuss our conversations, our thinkings, our thoughts around this group. So amid school closure, the LBUSD has been looking at different options to bring the district's most vulnerable students back safely. Due to the recent announcement that LBUSD will remain entirely online, at least through October 5th, due to the recent spike in COVID, district staff is preparing to enhance the online learning experience, support learners, which are our English learners, foster youth, homeless youth, and our students with disabilities with differing needs. So the district has provided a myriad of social and emotional learning, SEL, activities for students, parents, guardians, and staff during school closure and also during summer school. That will be enhanced upon the start of the new school year. So our SEL, or our social, emotional, and behavioral health related support, more specifically, has been provided amid school closure and during summer school ESY. And that's and thanks to our Family Resource Center staff members who have really stepped up. You know, our Family Resource Centers currently provide services to 26 sites. They extended those services to all 85 sites in the LBUSD amid school closure and also during summer school in the ESY, which has been very beneficial for our families. We've received a lot of positive remarks about those services, and we're helping more students during the summer, which is also great as well. The district will take a deeper dive in discussing these groups again during the August 5th board meeting. So let's just quickly speak about or discuss our special education students and our specialized instruction and IEP services. So for our specialized academic instruction, that will include a virtual, synchronous, and asynchronous learning option to all students. We have a program that's called Unique Learning Systems. That's for our functional elementary and middle, and also our ACT program, which is our adult community transition program. So it's an alternative curriculum that's being provided to our most vulnerable populations. And then we have related services, and that could be transportation, that could be assistive technology, that could be occupational therapy, will be provided virtually with modifications being made to one-to-one support services. And then our accommodations and modifications are being followed to the extent possible under distance learning. All IEPs will be conducted virtually in accordance with the law. And then with our Senate Bill 98, that requires IEPs to include the language to address emergency situations. So for example, LBUSD IEP language will include, during a present or future unknown emergency, the services reflected in the particular IEP will be implemented to the greatest extent practical through a flexible delivery model, such as online distance learning. And then there's more to come around that. And I say more to come because there's legislation, that is ever changing, that is shifting just based on online learning, and more districts coming out stating there will be online learning due to the spikes in COVID. And also with our related services and accommodations, there's going to be more information about that as we receive some guidance, but also being innovative and creative and working with our parent and student and community populations to discuss that in more detail. For our homeless youth and our foster youth, we're going to continue to work with our community agencies and shelters to assess that our homeless youth have the necessary resources, whether that's food, housing, technology. We've been working with our shelters to include that our students have such, especially the food and housing, which is the #1 priority for the basic needs aspects. And to continue to serve our homeless youth and families in need of basic needs services. And then for our foster youth, we have a wonderful social worker who works with our foster youth, who continues to reach out to families to assess their basic needs, whether that's food and security, whether that's housing, whether that's health, and then also the academic needs, especially now during ESY and the SEAL program. So home learning, connectivity support, and social emotional needs. And then also to continue to communicate with DCFS daily to ensure that the LBUSD updates are given to our county social workers. We interact with them daily to ensure that our students are taken care of, and also that their needs are taken care of as well from both sides. English learners. So we are working on additional support to meet the unique language acquisition needs. Newcomer support, we're looking at a newcomer support coach to provide parent outreach for use of digital tools, and also a new platform, dedicated support lines for parents in Spanish and other home languages in the district. And then a special consideration for providing additional time across level models for student-teacher interaction and support. And then new curriculum support documents that are being developed for K-5 dual immersion classes. Now, regarding SEL, there's a lot on this slide. I do recognize that, but I wanted to give you all an overview of what has been happening for our students, our parents and guardians, and our staff. So SEL, in short, is a process of developing the self-awareness, self-control, and interpersonal skills that are vital for schoolwork and life successes. Now, the following activities have been a focus for students, parents, and guardians and staff during school closure and still summer school, and will be enhanced upon the start of the new school year. So to give an example for students, and we have Brian and Chris and Jay to speak about some of the stuff that has been embedded into the curriculum, especially for summer school, and we received a great outpouring of support for the work with our students. So we had morning wellness check-ins, mindfulness and movement, breathing techniques, self-regulation, grief and trauma resources. And when I say grief, not necessarily because someone passed away in that student's family, but more so the grief of not being able to connect with friends in a social environment. Then also well-being resources. And then for our parents and guardians, we've provided some of the same techniques and activities to more mindfulness for our parents, self-regulation, new strategies and tools to support balance in their life and home. And we've heard a lot about this, balancing or rebalancing with their children. Suicide awareness and prevention. We know that there has been a spike in suicide, even suicidal ideation with our students amid school closure. And this is not just within Long Beach Unified, but this is a nationwide issue. Grief and trauma resources, and also well-being resources. And for our staff, Our perception, our thought around that is that if our staff is pouring from an empty cup, right, it's not going to work. Our staff has to be well and able to help our students who are in need, but also have to take care of their needs as well. So we want our staff to have wellness check-ins. We built Google Classroom specifically for all of our staff as a check-in model to use these tools when they need them in any place and time, 24/7. Suicide awareness and prevention for our staff, grief and trauma resources, and also well-being resources for our staff members as well. And just quickly, this is my last slide before I bring back Dr. Tiffany Brown to the podium. Utilizing telecounseling. Telecounseling is something that we have started this summer. It has gone quite well for us. And that is a virtual platform or phone calls to support the socially, emotional, and behavioral health related needs of students at 26 LBUSD Family Resource Center sites. And remember, we're using this for all of our 85 sites during the summer. And again, that has worked out particularly well. Continue to provide students, age-appropriate families, and staff information on how to access resources for mental health and wellness. Continue to refer age-appropriate families and staff for direct mental health services, whether they're Medi-Cal eligible or they have private insurance. We do have organizations and agencies in Long Beach and across the county who do support our families with private insurance. Continue to develop videos for families and staff on mental health topics such as anxious behaviors, depressive behaviors, suicide prevention, etc. And then continue to conduct webinars and our virtual meetings for families and staff on mental health topics. Our Parent University staff has been well equipped and has provided such videos via YouTube. You can actually tap into those videos right now as we speak. And our Family Resource Center staff are all in staff. Our student placement administrator, Dr. Lashandra Prelo, the all-in staff, the family resource staff, our homeless education program staff, Nancy Izumi and Maribel Gonzalez, and also Susana Cortez, our foster youth liaison, has done a tremendous job in conducting such webinars and virtual trainings for all of our families. And now I'll bring back Dr. Tiffany Brown to the podium. Thank you for your time.
Oh, good, you're still there. I'm smiling at you. I'm going to stop screen sharing as we wrap up today and thank everybody for their participation in this presentation. As you can see, we have taken none of this lightly. We hold the seriousness, the responsibility, the level of detail, and we recognize that today we have only scratched the surface in some of the detail that our community is seeking. And so I began by saying every piece of information that we share brings more questions and more desire for detail, and we know that. What I want to say in closing is that in the coming weeks, what you can expect through video messaging and through a communication plan that we've laid out, you can expect more detail on all of this. The teachers who are at home watching and thinking, I need a whole lot more, you will have it. Our parents that are watching, same feeling, you will have it. Our community who has children with special needs and are thinking, I didn't hear enough, we know. We will bring more information to you. And so our work will continue to be focused on how we can represent everyone, address the needs of everyone in a time that is not the time that we would choose, but a time that we hold great responsibility for the work that lies ahead. We have pushed ourselves to a short time schedule and we still have the budget engagement process to remain. But before we wrap up this component, I want to ask you questions, things we need to know, things we need to plan for additionally from our board members.
I think I'll start it out with a question if that's okay. Okay.
Absolutely.
It's hard to tell with the delay and everything. Do we have a platform for teachers or a platform for parents when they have questions or when they have concerns, is there somewhere or somebody they can talk to?
Absolutely. What we want to convey to the community is we're still all here. We have never left. And so while our buildings are not open, we are all here. We are available for questions. When I say we, I mean all of our level offices. I mean our support offices. We are all still here. We don't sleep in the building. Sometimes we feel like we should sleep in the building because we want to be completely available and we welcome questions. What we are also trying to do is anticipate the groups of questions that will come, and our communication plan is centered around the things we know our community wants to know more about.
Thank you.
Additional
Dr.
questions?
Brown,
Yeah.
thank you so much to you and all of the executive staff for all the work that went into not just the presentation today, but these plans, right? And knowing that we'll have a lot more details in the weeks to come, I just have two quick questions, brief questions, because I know we also want to be cognizant of time. First is there a way to have the PowerPoint either disseminated or distributed, you know, in our multiple languages here, given that a lot of folks either didn't watch right now live or won't access the video? Can we do that?
Absolutely. We will have it translated. We will post it to our website and blast it out through all the channels.
Great.
And we'll do that following the presentation this morning.
Thank you. My question is more around, given that we're September 1st, it'll be 100% remote. I don't want to dive too deep into the hypothetical hybrid model, so more with our 100% remote model. Starting September 1st. And it really is based on the premise that, from what I could tell, at all grade levels, we will have more live synchronous interaction between teachers and students, right? That's clear from that. My question is around those students, it's around student needs basically, that have had a tough time, that are struggling right now, that weren't engaged or weren't engaged very much in the spring. Could you talk a little bit about the details of how we're reaching out to them, what we're going to do so that September 1st, you know, taking all of that into account, how are we going to reach out to those students that for whatever reason weren't logging in, weren't engaged, and are struggling?
Thank you for the question. That's something we spend a lot of time thinking about. The first component of what you asked is really the most important, that what we are doing come fall will look very different, and it will require a different level of focus and therefore engagement. So our first hope is that the platform that we will be using and the amount of synchronous instruction that our students will experience will engage them further. We actually learned that our participation rate was quite high, but there was a drop off upon students. And knowing the students that struggled in spring, we are just going to anticipate that they may struggle in fall and go towards them using all of the resources that we have available, including community workers. And we will make every effort to find and bring our students in because we want them with us.
Additional questions?
Yes, thank you. Dr. Brown, I think you hit on the one that is most concerning to me, is how do we find them all? And especially those students we know who are struggling. And we won't have test data this year, obviously, but looking back a year to those students who really hadn't met any standards, our students who were most behind are the ones I'm most concerned about making sure we're bringing back into the fold. So you spoke about community workers. I know it's one of the things that I think is most troublesome to me is I am willing to join an outreach team to knock on doors. But whatever, can you elaborate a little bit on what plans we have to really do that specific outreach to find those students? And I know some of our students may have left the country. In certain neighborhoods, we know that was a bigger propensity to quarantine with family, potentially somewhere else, and making sure we're reaching those students as well. So if you could just speak briefly to those plans, I would appreciate it.
One of the things we've talked a lot about is recognizing that we need to know who remains in our community. And the next weeks are going to tell us a lot about that as we reach out to determine who remains enrolled with us. Once we have that information, a positive thing is that our schools don't need more information about who has struggled. We know who has struggled, and we will use all of our available school resources, district resources, and tap our community resources for really reaching out to find students. What we know from prior efforts related to attendance, et cetera, is that finding students is not hard for us. Engaging them once we find them is the thing that we will really want to supportively work for. And in the coming weeks, as we plan towards distance learning, we will be continuing to develop that plan, and we'll let you know so that we can, as a community, share responsibility around how we bring everyone towards us in a very different environment.
Thank you. And I just want to thank you and the staff. I know folks have been anxious, to say the least, about what it will all look like, feel like, how it will work. And this is our first public meeting since, and having that opportunity to have a conversation. And the plans that are presented, like you said, are detailed, but beg way more questions. And I know each of you could have stood up there probably for an hour on your own to tell us the work that your teams have been doing. So I'm grateful for the overview. I look forward to more information. I have about 4 pages of questions that I've been asked over the last several weeks. And as I expected, you took care of a lot of them at the surface level. And I know that you have lots more information to share with us in the coming weeks. So to the staff who have been working tirelessly to come up with plans, as is your job, I'm really grateful. And I look forward to hearing more.
Tiffany, thank you so much. Thank you for all the folks that presented. Appreciate it. The wealth of information that you provided for the board. And going forward, we know that you'll update that information. But thank you very much.